Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, boys and girls, all the way down to the little ass babies. Welcome to the Uncovered Podcast with Nick and Femi. What's going on?
Yo, what is going on, people? It's great to have you here, Femi.
Thank
Looking so vibrant today.
Thank you, but I got a bit of color on, which is a bit different for me. But yeah,
I know.
we got it out. Yeah.
Obviously, reflects what's going on in your life a little bit, eh?
Life's good, man. We thank God. Thank God. Thank God for the blessings. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And because you didn't ask, I'm doing okay.
I really didn't.
You didn't. So
it's
that's why
so crazy.
That's why I answered it myself. So yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
How's your life been, bro? Do you know what I realized? We talk a lot about my life. Yeah. We don't talk enough about your life.
Yeah.
How are you?
Because according to you, every intro with a guest, you're like, it's not about you this episode, Nick. No one really cares about you today, Nick.
But that's also very factual.
Okay, so then where do we stand?
We have no guests. we have no guests. So apparently we have to have it about you somewhat. Okay. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So how are you, Nick? What's been going on, man?
Oh man, not a whole lot at the moment. I've just been, going through the motions, working, trying to reach a bit of goals, trying to grow a little bit spiritually and mentally. And
come on.
Yeah, that's kind of been me. So that's kind of the journey. That's what I'm doing at the moment. So
rock and roll, brother.
Yes,
rock and roll.
Thanks, mate.
That's sick, bro. Straight up. And there's been a lot of exciting things that's happening. A lot of exciting things that are happening in both of our lives that we wanted to announce today. Do you want to tell the people what's going on?
There's so many things that are going on at the moment. So I just want to make sure that I'm aligned with what you're thinking. So I'll let you do the honors.
That's so crazy. Cool. Nick trying to do an intro.
There was no intro. I think I tried to palm that intro off to you.
Bro, do the intro. Get your vibes up. Come on, big man.
My vibes are there, but I'm like, you know what? Because this is the special one, obviously.
It's a very special episode. So this one's very special.
So I'm like, you know what? Like, let me give it to you. Like,
Facts.
Can't take all the credit sometimes,
Yeah, you do so much in this podcast. It'd be crazy for you to do more.
It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy.
No, seriously though. All right, cool. So there's been a lot happening in our lives, right? And we've been working a lot, very, very hard. If you guys don't know who we are, we do a lot of different things. We do a lot of work for media companies, a lot of work for platforms. We collaborate with some awesome brands, and we ourselves are a brand, and we've been in the coaching space and for a long, long time in many different facets. And I think that now we've always had the plan to be able to have this big play, the big play about being able to create a platform for people that want to work on their mental health from an everyday fitness perspective, not a clinical crisis perspective. Because obviously mental health is a thing that unfortunately we look at it as a very reactive disease, a very reactive approach in terms of our care and help seeking behaviors is very reactive rather than a proactive thing, right? And that's unfortunate. What I mean by that is like, if you only seek mental health you only seek help for mental health when shit has hit the fan, which is a terrible way to treat any illness. If you knew that, hey, look, if you eat 1 million Starbursts, you're probably going to get diabetes. What are you going to do? Probably not eat 1 million Starbursts, right?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't hit 1 million, but you still keep going a bit. I'm joking. I know.
You might eat a few, which is okay. You might mental health you're never going to have a perfect mental health. You're going to have shit going on. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is that you're going to do things that's going to be like, I better not because I don't want this shit to hit the fan. But mental health, it's like we don't even think about it. Most people don't think about it until it's like, I feel effed. Yeah. I feel bad. I feel blah, 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 blah. I'm sad. I'm this and blah, 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 blah. So what we've created, which is really, really exciting, is that we've created a platform and a program. We are creating and we're going to launch it in the next 4 weeks, is a platform and a program specifically tailored towards stress. Why stress? Mental health is a very broad thing. Why are we looking at stress? We feel like specifically within 2020, it's been one of the most stressful years for most people. Financially, relationship-wise, health-wise, lots of different things. People are overwhelmed with stress. So what we've decided is we're going to put that into a program that's going to allow people to be able to from a day-to-day basis, how to take over, how to control their stress, how to manage their stress, understand what their stresses are, understand all that kind of stuff, so that they're at a level where they have a much higher stress tolerance and can handle more shit in their life and avoid burnout. So why am I telling you this? Good question, Femi. Why I'm telling Why I'm telling you this is because to celebrate that, for the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about stress, right? We're gonna have a short series that's going to be really highlighting stress and really explaining it from our perspective, why we care about it and why you should too, and because there's going to be a lot of things, even through researching this on a deeper level, there's a lot of things that I've uncovered about myself, about stress and how I stress and what I feel and what stresses me. So we hope that this is going to give you value because it's something that we're passionate about. And yeah, more or less, that's what's going to be happening over the next kind of couple of weeks. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Well done, Femi. You absolutely nailed that, bro.
100%.
Nah, awesome. But like literally, like what Femi said, like I think this is it's really important and it's really relevant in like all our lives. We all kind of experience it. So to really hit home with what Femi said, we're going to be talking about the way that we want to start this one is that we're going to be talking about obviously like what is stress?
Yeah.
How does it show up? How do you know if you're going through a stressful time? What are your triggers?
Yes.
How do you cope with it? We're going to go from a very basic level, and obviously we're not going to cover so much because it's going to go over a course of 4 weeks. But I want this to be super valuable, and I really want this to give you a lot of insight and perspective and give you the opportunity to do your own kind of investigation and research as to what causes you stress, because that's the whole kind of aim about what we're trying to achieve here. So without further ado, let's kind of get into it. Is that the right button?
You didn't see you didn't see that one coming
that's
out.
not coming up, man. I didn't know what you were going to do.
You're a joke.
Yeah.
That's
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. But boom. So let's kind of get to it. So like firstly, like from what we know, like what is stress?
So obviously stress is like a involuntary response to a stressor. So it's a trigger. So it's something that triggers you. It's an involuntary response to something that we deem as elevating. So that's what stress is. So it takes us from a level of, let's say, whatever, calm, our base level. That's why it's really important to understand what your base level is. And then something that stress is something that is a response, an involuntary response to a trigger. So it's really important that stress is, you can't force yourself to be stressed. Stress is something that just happens. So the exciting thing is that like if something can trigger you, you can take away those triggers.
Yeah.
So you can really like be able to you can manage that spike. All of this stuff is really exciting stuff because it's really, really manageable, and it's not something that you're out of control.
Yeah.
It's not stuff that's like out of your control. So that's what's really exciting about stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like you've kind of nailed it, because like you said, like we're in such a powerful position where we can take it away, because like you said, stress is a trigger, and most times it's an external trigger. So that external trigger, we have the opportunity to get away from that, move around a little bit and do something to make sure that we're not triggered as much. And the reality is that stress is not something that we can completely eradicate. Stress is a kind of a normal part of our lives. And there's kind of like 2 phases that you normally go through with stress. You obviously have like your acute phase and your obviously a chronic phase. And acute's more like a short-term kind of thing.
Yep.
And acute's kind of like, like we all go through it. And I can give you like an example where it's like leading up to an exam, a very important day for me, I might feel quite stressed.
Yeah.
No one's saying that's abnormal to kind of feel that way, because like, of course, you're going to feel a bit stressed leading up to it because you feel that pressure to perform really well on that day.
Yeah.
But then as soon as you get rid of it and you do it, you're kind of relieved a little bit more. It's more of an acute kind of thing. But we're chronic, where it becomes a bit more of an issue, where it's like it's really taken over your life.
Yeah.
As in like this is prolonging for such an extensive period of time where you feel like you're not in control of your life. You're not sure what's going on. Every single day there's this certain rhetoric, there's a certain thing that you're doing every single day that it's becoming an issue. And I think that like it's really important to differentiate that, because some people can like be concerned about the little small acute stresses. It's like, oh, I shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with like when we talk about depression. Some people feel like, oh, but I can't feel sad. And you had to really highlight that in one of the podcasts that we did. Exact same thing with stress. And Femi and I personally, like we've gone through, I think last year was for me personally, one of the most stressful times. And I'm sure that you can feel that as well, that it's like, and there was a difficult time because it was like one of the things that we loved so much, we were working hard on it so much, was the thing that was killing us. that was
That's
literally
it.
killing us. And I think that was actually developing into like a chronic thing, because I remember I used to tell Femi that like in the middle of the night, I'd wake up like, oh shit, like I can't sleep. You know, like I feel so weird. Every day when I'm trying to do things, I can't be present anymore because I'm always just
Preoccupied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's an issue.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So it's like, what do you think people can do? Or actually, let me word it differently.
Yeah.
How important is it for people to understand their triggers and understand what it is that causes them stress?
Well, without knowledge, we're dead, right? Like if we're ignorant to something, you can't measure something you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you don't know that this is your trigger, it's just going to keep triggering you and you're going to be like, oh shit, why am I triggered? So it's really important that we know what are the things that are stressing us? What are our stresses? What are the things that are most stressful for us? There's pretty general areas that most people feel stressed about. Work and relationships are the biggest areas that people are stressed about generally. Which work ties into finance. Work and finance are more or less the same thing. And relationships, right? So that's platonic and also romantic. So those are the big areas that it is. So it's usually those areas that are kind of got us feeling some type of way. So if you're able to identify that at that level, cool. Most of your shit is gonna fall into that. That's one level. But what you need to understand is that what is it within those things that are specifically triggering you? Now, from there, you go to a deeper level that we don't have to get to right now. It might be a little bit over people's heads, but like the way that this is happening and a way to really stomp this out is by understanding, why is that even triggering me? Because it's one thing to understand, okay, this is a stressor, but why the F is it a stressor? Like me and you, stresses there's different responses to stresses. Everybody knows that. If someone comes in and starts yelling in a room, 3 people are in the room, you don't care, I don't care, but Jane Smith in the corner cares. Why? Why is she so stressed about someone that's yelling? There's got to be a reason for that,
Definitely.
right? So the only way to really kind of understand, I can explain it, is like you got to think about. I always used to talk about this, and things have come. I haven't had the opportunity. Well, I've had the opportunity, but I haven't spoken about it in a while. But I think it's a good kind of tie-in, and we spoke about it in our last episode. I'm not sure, depending on when it comes out, with Sarah Riley.
Oh yeah, they'll know that one's out by then.
Cool. Yeah. So Sarah Riley, we spoke about it. It's like when you're feeling stressed or triggered, it's because someone has like put their thumb on an open wound. It's like, I feel stressed in this conversation, in this confrontation, because I'm traumatized by past conversations that we've had. Or past experiences that haven't gone well. So once I understand that and I'm able to kind of work through that pain between that confrontation, that's less stressful for me. And when I can identify those stresses and be able to understand the cause of those stresses, I can now start doing the work to address those stresses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, like it's that association that we have, and a lot of the times it's like, I think you were saying in the podcast as well, we were talking about it, that it usually starts from like a young age. It's something that we've dealt with previously, but it's something that we now tend to forget because we did it when we were young. Sometimes we don't really have too much memory of it. And that's why we have to do a lot of like inner work to be able to get that out, pull that thumb out, whatever it is that's on that wound that's stopping me and allow me to feel stressed all the time, to allow me to get over it. And that's kind of the tough thing, because a lot of the time, our approach to dealing with stress and dealing with all these things is very, very superficial. A lot of the times we're just looking for very short things to just cure it. I don't want to deal with the root issue. I don't want to really go that deep. Why don't I want to go that deep? Few reasons. Not too sure most part, but maybe like I'm scared of the truth. I'm scared to go that deep.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm actually just can't be bothered. I'm lazy. I think naturally as humans, we tend to be quite lazy and we're not bothered to actually do that inner work, and we're just looking for quick fixes. We're in a society that we just want something quick and that's it to get me by, and that's kind of how it is. So, but that's really the thing that's actually killing us, because us not actually looking at having a more of a sustainable and really detailed kind of approach to that thing. And I think that once we're able to do that kind of inner work, go in deep, understand what's going on, then you're going to be surprised on what's going to happen. It's like what Sarah was saying in that podcast. It's like we're working on a very kind of like superficial, basic level of what we kind of think is possible at the moment. But as soon as we untap and we go in, you're going to see that your capacity is going to expand so much more.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to achieve with reducing stress. It's not about you actually getting rid of that trigger, but it's you actually expanding your capacity to be able to deal with that trigger so you can manage it. Because the things that you were talking about, like work, finances, relationships, they're going to be there. Like you can't get rid of that. Like you need that to survive. Like, how can I pay my bills? You know what I mean? Without money. So it's about expanding my capacity. It's like, okay, how can I deal with that? And how can I be able to also do other things as well, which I think is so important. And I think it'd be good for the listeners as well, is that if you can kind of share some of our personal story, because I know that last year was such a stressful time for us. How did you navigate that period?
Honestly, not well. There was times where I didn't navigate it well at all. But obviously towards the end of it, I got very confident in my ability to be able to handle stress, which happens, you know, as you go through stress, you get a bit more confident. But there was definitely times where I was shocking at it, right? I'm usually like, I'll just give you an example of what happened last year. So last year, yeah, go on. Ready? Welcome to Femi's Story Corner, starring Femi. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So boom. Imagine this is, I don't even know when it is. This is probably like June or some shit. June. I think June was a really messed up month. June was a messed up month.
Oh, no, I don't think it was June.
Was it June or was it May?
Nah, it was
May.
It was around April, May. That's when the shit hit the
fan. Yeah, last year shit had been cool, boom. So imagine we've got this fresh office. You know, we went from making comfortable money, like we're killing it in business at this point. We're making 5 figures every single week comfortably, right? But we're also spending 5 figures every single week. Yeah, it was a crazy time. So stupid. Anyway,
we didn't know anything about business. Just
at that time,
we were very big on like just go,
just go. We knew how to make money, and that was all we needed to know. We all just know that like that's all that business is, just making money, right? Like cool, that's it, simple.
Yeah.
Boom. What the F do you do when you stop making money? Systems went down. Everything kind of went down. We were just in an absolute freeze, right? Had no ability to make money. So keep in mind, by the end of May or something like that, we had like a $17,000 bill that was due, right? Something like that. Something stupid like that. Yeah. $17,000 bill. The month before, we haven't made any money. A whole month. Imagine your business has gone a whole month. We didn't make a single sale. Or maybe made one, right? Nothing. I'm full-time in the business. I'm not getting paid. I've got bills to pay. I've got a loan. I've got a mortgage. I've got a lot of shit to pay. I'm working full-time. I got no means, right? I've just broken my ankle.
That was the craziest. That was the craziest, actually.
I've just broken my ankle. I can't go back to work in the hospital. So all I can do is rely on the money that I'm meant to be making as a full-time employee of my own business, right? How are we gonna pay you, man? There's no money. So I'm like, all right, cool, boom. So I have to survive, bro. So I'm like transferring all the money out of my credit card into my normal account.
If you guys know about cash advances,
bro, it's not crazy. Cheap. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
So that's the only way I can pay my bills, right? I got to pay all my shit, eat, live, car loan, mortgage, everything. I was paying it on credit card. It was so crazy. I had no credit. I had credit cards, but I didn't use them. Like I was the one that was always telling Nick credit cards are stupid. I never used my credit card. I just didn't have it. I just had it because I got it so I could get free travel insurance when I went overseas. That's the only time I really used it. And the other one was when I was traveling. I didn't really use them, and I was just gonna close them anyway. Boom. I'm talking 2 months. I maxed them out to pay for my bills, pay for my food. I've maxed out my money. Now it's not that I'm no longer burning because I'm no longer just burning because now I have to use my credit card. I now have no money. I've borrowed money from every single person I know at this point. I'm talking friends, family, I've borrowed. I'm owing so much money. I have no money at this point, right? And I'm screwed. Like I I can't even pay like for petrol and shit. Like I had to hit my boys up like, yo, can you transfer me $20 so I could just get petrol and this shit, please. Life was so crazy, right? And not only is that happening in my life personally and financially, we've also got this massive bill looming at the end of the month. It's looming. Like I have to pay this shit. Like I have no question. Like I have to pay it. Where the fuck are we gonna get $17,000? Was even more, right?
Yeah, it was something ridiculous.
Something ridiculous, even more. Like 20 something, 30,000, something crazy, tens of thousands of dollars, right? And we had to pay this shit by the end of the month. Talk less of all the other bills and all the other shit that we paid. Nick's pulling money out of different places. I won't say where you're pulling them out of. You're pulling money out of different places to pay for different shit. $15,000 here, $30,000 here. Like shit was so crazy, right? And I'm like, yo, I'm sitting there. I'm like, how the fuck am I gonna get through this, man? Like I'm gonna have to sell my car. I'm gonna have to like, I don't know. I can't pay for this mortgage. Like I can't do this. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Seriously, like on some serious shit. Like I'm ass out. And also we were building something in Nigeria that was taking a lot of my money. If you know anything about African parents, saying no is not an option. So it's like I have so much shit that I'm trying to like pay for that I was able to pay for 2 months ago. 3 months ago. Now that everything's changed so rapidly. I wasn't able to do that. Cool. So I'm stressing, bro. Like I'm like, this isn't like, I don't know how things gonna be okay. No, this is like real shit. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do type thing. Like I actually don't know what I'm gonna do. I was blessed enough that I knew that at least I'll be at home. I could just live in my parents' house, so I'm never gonna be dead, which was like a blessing, a huge blessing. But like everything that I would have and everything I've worked for was about to be taken away from me. I couldn't hold down a relationship. I was too stressed. I was talking to someone at the time that obviously fell through. Like I'm not gonna be a good person. That person was a flop anyway. But like, yeah.
I don't remember. But anyway,
I wouldn't say the name. It was a flop at the time. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
I would be thinking about this the whole podcast.
You're gonna be thinking it's crazy. But like I was definitely not in the right mindset or the right headspace.
Oh yeah.
You got it. Yeah, got it, nigga. Yeah, it's crazy. That time was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was like I was definitely not on the right. I was so stressed. I was a bad friend. I was a bad bad whatever mate, bad son, bad everything. Because all I could think about was, how am I going to make $17,000 with no job and no money?
And it's crazy because that was just like the money side, because it sounds like, obviously it's like money was the trigger that started it. But then you realize that from that one trigger, that pulled out so many other triggers for so many different things. And that's kind of how it always started.
Exactly.
It became finances, then it became a personal thing, and then it became like, I think even part of it as well could have even been like I know for me, it could have been like an ego/pride thing, because during that time, I hadn't dealt with that. And a lot of people told us that going into business was risky, it was scary, and we weren't too sure, we made a lot of sacrifices.
And we smashed it so early.
And it's like, oh, now you failed. Oh, I've told you so.
Yeah. And it's crazy because when we started business, we killed it quickly. Yeah. We did very well. We had our time period at the start, very, very start, where I struggled. But after that, we killed it very, very quickly. And we scaled to we scaled to 5 figures a week very quickly. And it wasn't a drama, right? Yeah. Which was great. But because we did well, we had that pride and we had that ego that didn't let us want to be like, okay, well, hey, like I fucked up. I need help. Exactly. Even though, to be honest, mine was beyond that point. I did say I need help, and I got the help that I could, but I was still in a very sticky situation. Like I was paying bills, like, yo, I don't even want to get into the figures, but like bills were crazy at that time. I had a lot of expenses, and because the times were tough, my expenses were going up to be able to try to manage it properly. Anyway, long story short, that was the worst month of that was a lot worse, like 3 months of my life. I was getting no money, no nothing. I was ass out, and it was like, I had no idea I was going to make it out. Okay, cool. That's the story. How did I kind of like overcome that is what you're probably asking me. It got to the point, because that's where I really learned to be able to deal with this shit. what does dealing with it mean? Like, honestly, what does dealing with it mean? Dealing with it doesn't mean meditating and forgetting that you have problems. That's not dealing with it. What does dealing with it really mean? And I had to really do a lot of soul searching with myself. And this is where I wasn't perfect. I'm not perfect now, but this is where a lot of my journey started just before we went on the race. This is where a lot of my journey kind of, even after the race as well, was like that whole kind of like soul searching journey.
Yeah, you know what I think it was? Just sorry to butt in there, but I think this is actually a really great story that paints a lot of pictures to how kind of people go with their lives and they're still stuck in this life, is that, like you were kind of saying, it's like we had this trigger, I was in this spot, and I realized that all these superficial fixes that we try to do isn't cut into it at the moment. Like, you know, maybe for some people it could be like drinking, could be indulging in movies, indulging in sugary stuff, whatever, that shit's not cut into it.
Yeah.
But then it was until we actually realized that we need to dig a bit deeper, and then to a point where luckily the race came and we got out of that situation, and it gave us a lot more of an opportunity to get rid of that stress and that trigger that's just overhauling our lives, to then be able to come back and really search for what needs to happen. And I just wanted to highlight that point. It's like getting rid of that trigger at that point to allow your mind to be a lot more like relaxed, calm, and be able to deal with what's going on at a deeper level. I think that was like a really key point that I wanted the listeners to take out of that, because it's so relatable on so many different levels.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like I say it all the time, I think the race changed/saved my life.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it was a time period that was very confusing for me, very, very tough for me. I felt like I was regressing in a lot of ways. I was very, very overwhelmed and very, very stressed, and it caused me to, I needed to do a lot of soul searching. And I think that, like you said, being able to get away from and physically isolate from those problems, and those problems didn't go away, but I didn't have to face them, gave me the opportunity to be able to, gave me the space, the safe space to be able to look inward. And during that soul searching, because I was doing a lot of soul searching before the race. It was just that once I was able to get that starting point, then the race came at that perfect time. It was awesome for me to, what I've already started, I could accelerate.
Yeah.
So what I did basically in terms of it was that I had to really dig deep, and this is, I don't want to go too far and too deep into my own personal story and situation, because everybody's situation is different. But what I had to do was I had to really go into my own kind of desire to succeed, and where that came from, because that's where the stress was, right? It's like, everything, I realized that all of the stress is coming from a behavior that led me to be in this point. Like you said, the ego, the pride. Like, why am I so desperate for it? Why do I have to rush? Why do I have to make those decisions? It's coming from a decision that stems from trauma, right? So it's like, I had to go into like a really, really deep thing of like, you know what? That's actually where I'm at. I have a lot of pride around this. Why am I not asking for support? Why am I not doing this? Why do I have to succeed now? Why do I have to do this? Why am I obsessed with money? Why is money so important to me? Why does it play that much of a role? And when I got to the bottom of that, I was able to kind of unpack that kind of process. I was able to understand my stresses, obviously, understand what is kind of like why, and understand why that's stressing me, why the kind of like fear of shit is so stressful. I'm like, look, I'm financially fucked. Like, that's where I'm at right now. That's okay for that period. It was okay. I had to be okay with that, because whether I cry or whether I laugh, I'm financially fucked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? At that time. So I was like, okay, cool. So what do I do? How do I actually clear my head to start fixing those things? And then when I was able to kind of clear my head, have that clarity of mind, and change my habits, change the things that I was doing that was perpetuating this shitty situation and making me more stressed, I was able to start transcending the situation. The situation didn't get better for many more months. However, the way I saw it and the way I approached it was completely different.
100%. And it's like, like, I just remember that time, like I record so vividly, like it was such it was so dramatic. And I think that's like, for the guys that listen, because I know Femi's saying a lot and he did his own kind of personal journey, but it was kind of the same thing that obviously I was experiencing to the same extent, because like a little bit of different situations. Like at that time, I was still working, so I was still receiving something, but this guy over here is like, you know, he put his whole heart and soul, like he gave rid of everything to make this happen, to be in that position It's completely fucked. And I think the reason Femi shares this story and we wanted to share this story is because like that's kind of what happened this year for a lot of people. Like a lot of people went from being like, I'm okay now, it's all good, to being actually fucked, like completely fucked. So it's like, how do we handle that? And I think that your journey and that process of what we had to do to kind of get over it is really something that a lot of people that listen to this, and I hope really take notes from it, is something that they're able to do. And really bring awareness to the fact that it's like, it's not those like superficial short-term shit or whatever that's going to really resolve it. It might help temporarily, but it's not going to get to the root issue. If we were just if Fem was just looking for like short-term fixes, or we were just looking for like short-term fixes, then we wouldn't have been able to get to the bottom of it. And even like if we, you know, fast forward a bit more, like we really got out of it, and even when we got out of it, like we were in much of a better place, a lot more calmer, a lot more settled, not so attached, not coming from a place of ego. We're just, you know, just very grounded state. And I think that once you're able to kind of work on achieving that state, it's not something that you do straight away. It's more of like a gradual process where you're constantly, you know, processing stress, processing what's going on, understanding, asking yourself those deep questions. Then that's kind of ideally where you want to be. Because maybe not to the same extent as being having like $10,000s of financial stress. Some might be, but for some of you guys, it could just be work, and there's some attachment to work and like performing at work that is stressing you out every single time you go to work. Why is that? You know, that's the question that we've got to kind of ask ourselves. You guys need to kind of identify what the trigger is externally. What is it that's bothering you? And you just got to unravel it and ask yourself those proper questions to get to it.
Let me ask you a question, right? We talk about the obvious one, which is, you know, we talked about, well, not the obvious one, there's two obvious ones. We talked about from my perspective, the financial stresses.
Yeah.
What about relationship stresses? Have you had any recent relationship stresses that maybe you can share? Because people can really relate with financial this year, but there's also huge relationship issues that have been caused by this time period. If me and my girlfriend, you know, space is a beautiful thing, right? And then now we're stuck together 24/7. What the like? That's not ideal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can be tough for a lot of people. So maybe not particularly to this, but like, did you ever have a stressful time, maybe in a platonic or romantic relationship, where it was super stressful that you had to and you had to overcome it?
Yeah, I think there's like throughout the whole my kind of relationship experience, there's been heaps of times where times were super, super stressful. Times are even super, super stressful now. This is something that we're currently working towards, but I won't really talk about the present because I couldn't really like conclude it. But all I can remember is that back when we initially kind of started this relationship, it was like, that was at a time where like my business was everything. Everything, this is all I wanted to do. You know what I mean? And that's the priority. Like when we talk about like focal point system, it was like 100% business, and relationship was like 0. You know what I mean? It was very minimal. And I think that because of that, obviously in a relationship, it's not just me, it's like it's the other person as well. And that was something that I wouldn't really deep until towards maybe the end of last year. And the stresses there was that the fact is like, I part of me wanted this relationship to work. I wanted to see where this could go. But then another part of me was more towards the line of like, I really just want to grow like my baby, my business. I just want this to happen. And all my attachment and my self-worth and everything was tied to this making sense and working. So I think that when it comes to relationships, like that's like you said, it's one of the biggest stresses that we go through in life. And personally, without me being able to to effectively learn how to kind of process why this is stressing me out, there's going to be no way that I was going to be able to resolve it. There was going to be no way that I was going to be able to actually communicate it with her and communicate and actually figure out what's actually going on. Because a lot of times what we tend to do is that, like I was saying, I was looking for like a short-term fix. I was passing it along. I wasn't really looking for any kind of resolve of this. It's like, oh, she's pissed at me, I'm not spending much time with her. All right, let me just go see her for 2 days and then I'll move on, go back to my business. You know what I mean? It's kind of felt like this is just something that's just in my ear. It's like, oh, let me just address to it quickly and then move on. That's that short-term fix that I was looking for. Until I was able to kind of build up the courage and be able to kind of understand that obviously that I got my own internal issues. I haven't created a safe space internally for me to be able to have this conversation. So that means me being able to process, bring out my flaws, understand why I'm so attached to this, and really just dissect and ask myself those deep questions. Only then will you going to be able to really be able to have the proper conversation with your partner and your relationship. And you need to be able to create that safe space to be able to do so. And I think that for me personally, until I was able to do that, until I was able to understand what was going on, understand my stresses, understand where she's coming from, and be able to create that safe conversation and like just communicate that openly, that was the only time I was able to kind of resolve it. So I think that with relationships as well, like a lot of people have stresses when it comes to it. And I think for the most part, again, it's just my opinion. There's obviously no data backing it, but I think a lot of the time the stresses come from like an internal place first before it ever becomes something super, super external and super, super chronic and super, super.
There definitely is. There is a lot of it. There is like that. That's true. Like it's from trauma.
Yeah,
there's a lot of like there is a lot of backing for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where I was at with the relationships, and I think that was a very, very tough and stressful time, especially with like the business for it as well. It's like, well, I can't talk to you about this because you're not gonna solve this for me anyways.
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
the point? So yeah, man, I think that it was just getting to the bottom of it and getting to the root cause of it is what's gonna allow us to be able to allowed me to be able to like get out of it effectively and continue to have like a proper flourishing relationship.
Yeah. Okay, dope. Cool. So do you think like your tolerance for stressful situations has increased over the last couple of years?
Absolutely. I think that, the more that we continue to work on it continuously, because I think that what happens is that as we experience more stress and we get exposed to a lot more stress, once we're able to navigate and get out of it, your capacity inevitably increases.
Yeah.
You're like, I've been here before. I've been in this place. It's like it's like us skydiving, for example. You skydive the first time, you're like, oh shit, I'm scared. Like this is so foreign to me. But then when someone was to ask you to skydive again, you're not really as stressed about it. You're like, okay, I've been here. It's not a foreign kind of thing to me. I'm more able to kind of deal with this situation a bit more. So I think that over the time, as we experience it, we work through it properly and not superficially, then my personal threshold would increase, and anyone that's listening's threshold would probably increase as well as they do that.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. What do you think? What's your thought?
I agree with what you said. I'm a bit curious for you to maybe elaborate on the whole
experience.
No. You can if you want, but I was more talking about your example of the skydiving thing. Does stress tolerance only happen through confidence? Because that's what it sounds like. It's like you're confident because you've been there and you've done it before, so you're able to handle it better. The stress, do you get better at handling stress only through the repetition of an experience?
Oh, absolutely not. Like definitely not. So that was just my own personal kind of thing, and I used that example because it just tied in with my experience. Like skydiving was something that's like I wanted to do but I couldn't. Like it's just something that was relevant to my life, but it's definitely not the only way people can develop that threshold and that tolerance for stress. Absolutely not. It doesn't have to be through experiences. I was actually listening to a podcast and they were talking about how people think that like your experiences all the time are like your greatest learnings, but then he was actually arguing saying like, well, that's not actually the case. Like your experiences do play a role only if you effectively evaluate that experience and then be able to process from that.
Exactly.
So that's just one area. But of course, with that, there's a lot of works that we'll probably go in and talk about throughout the series of this podcast. But no, definitely not the only way.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this series. I think that this series is going to be very exciting. It's going to be very, very informative.
Yeah.
Informative, and it's going to give you a really, really good insight into our own lives, what we've been going through, what we've been dealing with, and how far we've come. Because I think that the biggest game changer in my life has been my ability to manage stress. One of the biggest game changers was because I don't live a less stressful life, to be honest. My life is still as stressful, maybe not financially anymore, but there's a lot of other stresses, deadlines, relationships, blah, 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 blah. So, but I think like my capacity to be able to handle those and manage them in a safe way is completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different.
100%.
Completely different.
100%. I totally agree with that, mate.
Yeah, facts.
Was there anything else you kind of wanted to add to that, or you think that we've kind of
I think we hit that one. I think I'm happy with that this episode, man. I think it's been sick.
Sweet, man. Well, kind of like what Fem was saying, like we're going to continue on with this. But I really want you guys to do like off the back of this, like there was obviously two prominent things that we were speaking about, which was like what is stress and identify. I want you guys to leave. Why am I weird? Check the YouTube video and you'll figure out how the weirdness all comes from. This is what he does all the, I wouldn't even say that.
Thank you.
I won't. But two things we spoke about: what is stress, and why it's so important to understand and identify your triggers to stress. Because I think that's gonna be the foundation, firstly, to be able to kind of help us eradicate and reduce stress. And which is everything that we're doing and what we're working towards as we build this platform, to be able to give people the proactive approach instead of a reactive approach to it. So I really want you guys to take that away from this series. We'll tie it back nicely in the next episode. But to that point, make sure you guys follow us, like, comment, subscribe at Nick and Femi,
Yes.
and leave a review. And on top of that, let me know your thoughts about this, because this is actually something that's really important to us. It's a passion of ours. It's something that we've been dealing with personally. So I'd love for you guys to kind of just engage, share what you've learned, what you've gone through. And if there's any ways that we can support you through this, I'd love to be able to contribute towards that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming to another episode.
Thank you for coming to another episode of Femi TV.
That's crazy. Yeah, you should put that out there. That's crazy.
Make sure you guys check that out.
Nobody checked that out, man. That's crazy.
You did it to yourself. All right, guys. Peace and love.
Peace.